The world has mostly been talking about Donald Trump's victory, his foreign and internal policies, and how they will affect the global order. However, something important has happened. Iran and Saudi Arabia are going to do naval drills together in the Red Sea. The unexpected move was revealed by the Iranian Navy today. This bold move is notable given the long-standing strong relationship between the US and Saudi Arabia. An interesting recent event is that a well-known Saudi general went to Iran and met with his Iranian colleague to talk about possible military cooperation. This meeting suggests that the naval exercises could be the start of a stronger military relationship between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Last week, Lieutenant General Fiyad bin Hamad al-Rui, who is the Chief of Staff for Saudi Arabia, met with Major General Mohammad Hussein Bagheri to talk about defense diplomacy and expanding military ties between the two countries. During their meeting, General Bauer stressed the importance of cooperation and invited Saudi naval forces to take part in future Iranian-led drills before talking about the strategic alliance between Iran and Saudi Arabia. While we won't go into detail now, let's take a moment to talk about some other important news stories from today. We'll talk about them in more depth in a future video. Military trends around the world show big changes. The US has changed its policy by allowing Ukraine to use long-range missiles to attack targets inside Russian territory. This comes after Russia increased its attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure and North Korea showed support for Moscow. Now that Ukraine is allowed to target critical military and energy sites in Russia, the Kremlin has warned of possible escalations. In response, Germany has refused to give Ukraine tourist long-range missiles, citing concerns over escalation despite pressure from other countries. These events show how global power is changing and the complex issues that come up when it comes to military aid and advanced technology. In the meantime, India successfully tested a long-range hypersonic rocket that can go faster than Mach 5 and has a range of more than 1,500 kilometers. India is now one of only a few countries with advanced hypersonic technology, which improves its military powers. Let's go back to the new information about Iran and Saudi Arabia. As tensions between Iran and Israel rise through rocket attacks and other actions, this Saudi-Iranian cooperation could have big effects. It could change the balance of power in the region, which could either make things more stable or cause allies to change in response to worsening conflicts. Before getting into the specifics of the naval exercises, it's important to look at the history of the relationship between these countries, the recent diplomatic progress made possible by China's mediation through BRICS, and how this unprecedented military cooperation might affect the Middle East's political situation. Early official ties and working together. Iran and Saudi Arabia officially became foreign partners when a friendship treaty was signed in Tiananmen Square on August 24, 1929. During the following decades, they mostly interacted with each other in a friendly way. In the 1960s, cooperation between the two countries grew. King Faisal of Saudi Arabia and Iran's Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi pushed for Islamic unity, which led to the formation of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, in 1969. Both countries were also founding members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, in 1960. Which aimed to keep oil prices stable and coordinate petroleum policies. The Border Delimitation Deal of 1968 was another example of how they worked together. However, the Iranian Revolution of 1979 was a turning point that caused moral differences that made ties more difficult. When the Islamic Republic was established in Iran, it caused problems because of Iran's desire to be rebellious and its attitude towards regional kingdoms. Even with these problems, both countries have tried to get along on occasion, and in recent years they have made big efforts to fix bilateral links and talk about their shared worries. Rivalry after the revolution, 1979 to 2000. The 1979 Iranian Revolution changed the relationship between Iran and Saudi Arabia in a big way. The establishment of Iran's Shiite Islamic Republic was very different from Saudi Arabia's Sunni monarchy, which led to higher ideological tensions between the two countries from 1980 to 1988. The war in Iraq. Saudi Arabia gave Iraq a lot of money, reportedly $1 billion a month in aid. This made things worse between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which were competing for leadership in the Muslim world. Iran wanted to spread its revolutionary model, while Saudi Arabia wanted to grow its Wahhabi influence. In proxy wars across the Middle East, Both countries backed opposite sides in regional disagreements, showing how competitive they were. An important event happened during the 1987 Hajj journey when Iranian visitors and Saudi security forces fought, killing over 400 people, including more than 200 Iranians. This tragedy made things worse between the two countries, and in 1988, official ties were severed. In the 1990s, Iran and Saudi Arabia made a lot of political attempts to fix their broken relationship. In June 1990, a terrible earthquake hit northern Iran, killing about 40,000 people. This was a turning point. Saudi Arabia sent Iran humanitarian aid, which was a big step towards peace. This action made it easier for diplomatic ties to be restored in 1991. After that, Iran's President Mohammad Khamis stressed regional cooperation and tried to improve relations with neighboring countries. A major turning point in the warming of relations was President Khatami's trip to Saudi Arabia in May 1999. It was the first official visit by an Iranian president since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. During this trip, Khatami met with King Fahd and Crown Prince Abdullah and talked about a range of topics, such as regional security and working together on economic issues. The Arab Spring uprising and the U.S. attack of Iraq in 2003 made things much worse between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Getting rid of Saddam Hussein's government in Iraq left a power void that gave Iran more influence in the area. In response, Saudi Arabia backed resistance groups in Syria and led an alliance against Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen, a very low point. In January 2016, Saudi Arabia put to death the well-known Shia cleric Sheikh Nimr al-Nimr. As a result of this move, there were many protests, including attacks on Saudi foreign posts in Iran. When Saudi Arabia cut off official links with Iran, it was a big step up in their rivalry. These events show how deeply religious and political issues have been in Iran for a long time. Let's take a moment to talk about Saudi ties in the last few decades. If you like the film so far, could you do us a small favor? Clicking like helps us reach more people, and letting us know what you think or feel in the comments has an even bigger effect. Thanks for watching. Let's go back to Diplomatic Breakthrough 23. In March 2023, Saudi Arabia and Iran agreed to restore diplomatic relations through Chinese mediation. This was a big change in the politics of the Middle East. As part of the agreement, embassies were reopened and talks about regional security were started, which was meant to ease long-standing tensions between the two countries. This piece is part of larger efforts to work together within the BRICS framework. In August 2023, both Saudi Arabia and Iran were invited to join BRICS. A bloc made up of Brazil, Russia and India, China and South Africa, which are playing bigger roles in the world's economy and politics, suggested a naval exercise and talked about the strategic consequences of it. In October 2024, the commander of the Iranian Navy, Rear Admiral Shahram Irani, said that Saudi Arabia had asked for joint naval drills in the Red Sea. After working together recently in the Sea of Oman on naval training with other countries, they are now working together on this project. In the past, Iran and Saudi Arabia have only worked together on a limited military level. In 2018, they took part in the Coalition of Friendship drill in the Indian Ocean, along with Oman and Pakistan. Russia and both of these countries took part in the IMEX 2024 naval drill in the northern Indian Ocean in October 2024. If the proposed Red Sea exercises materialize, they could make the region more stable and mark a strategic shift in Saudi Arabia's relationship with Iran. For Saudi Arabia, building ties with Iran while keeping a careful balance with Israel is important to protect its economy and regional standing. This kind of partnership shows that it has the military power and is ready to take part in more regional negotiations. Naval strengths and weaknesses side by side and strategy goals. Iran's naval strategy focuses on asymmetric attacks (ICS) to fight regional and Western powers. Its maritime forces are split into the normal Iranian Navy and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, which mainly operates in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's navy has ballistic and cruise missiles, subs, and drones. In August 2024, the IRGC Navy stated that it would be adding new cruise missiles with highly powerful warheads, which would make it more effective. The Navy of Saudi Arabia has the latest technology from the West and has 2 ships that work in both the Gulf and the Red Sea. As part of its efforts to modernize its navy, the kingdom has bought Avante 2,200 corvettes that are built for monitoring and control operations and can hold up to 10 tons of helicopters. This modernization fits with Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 plan to make the country's defense more independent and less reliant on military aid from other countries. Iran's naval plan is to use its power to scare off U.S. troops and control the sea routes in the Persian Gulf. This plan includes working together with countries like Russia and focusing on having control over the Strait of Hormuz, which is a very important oil path. The limited geography of the Gulf makes it hard for traditional maritime powers to deal with Iran's use of guerrilla naval tactics like swarm tactics with small boats. The Gulf Cooperation Council is very important to Saudi Arabia, but the country also has strong Western ties, especially with the U.S. Through these partnerships, Saudi Arabia can follow a defense policy that focuses on maintaining security in the region and fighting Iranian impact. Recent political changes, such as better ties with Iran, point to the possibility of working together, such as through joint naval drills. Encourage new changes in the maritime protection of the region, a way to get to unity even though they have different histories and beliefs. Iran and Saudi Arabia share common values in the Middle East. There are many things that Iran and Saudi Arabia, which follow Shia and Sunni Islam, have in common. Both are Muslim-majority countries with big roles in the Middle East. They also have a lot of religious, cultural, and economic power that, if used together, could change the future of the region. Their shared interests and principles make it easy for them to work together politically, regardless of their religious beliefs. Both countries see themselves as guardians of Islamic heritage. Saudi Arabia as the home of Islam's holiest sites and Iran as a leader in Shia scholarship and practice. While they have historically competed for religious leadership in the Muslim world, they are united in their opposition to Western hegemony in the region and share a commitment to preserving the sovereignty and dignity of Muslim nations. Economically, both countries are oiler giants and founding members of OPEC, sharing a vested interest in stabilizing global energy markets. Their ability to cooperate on oil production quotas, price stabilization, and energy security could bring significant benefits not only to themselves but also to the global economy. Furthermore, economic diversification efforts such as Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 and Iran's ambitions to expand trade partnerships align in their objectives to reduce dependency on oil revenue and create sustainable economic models. In recent years, both nations have also expressed interest in expanding economic cooperation within broader frameworks like the BRICS coalition. Their shared inclusion in such platforms demonstrates mutual recognition of their potential for collaborative economic growth. Politically, Iran and Saudi Arabia share common concerns over regional stability. Because of the dangers of terrorism and outside meddling in Middle Eastern affairs, both countries want to weaken the grip of foreign powers on the area and make their own security systems stronger. The Chinese-mediated Repro-Ma in 2023 showed a practical desire to put regional security ahead of old grudges. I think that Iran and Saudi Arabia's recent efforts to start talking about important regional issues, like naval security in the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf, show that they can work together to solve problems. By focusing on mutual security concerns, Iran and Saudi Arabia can show others how to settle disagreements peacefully instead of fighting. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching it. If you found it interesting or inspiring, please show your support by liking it and subscribing to stay connected with our community.